All right, continuing my journey of revisiting old blog posts and see what I find. Last time we looked at through April 2007. Let's see what comes after that. April, okay, May 2007. Go to the bottom. Speaking at Advisor DevCon. Link, design patterns. Compare design patterns between FoxPro and .NET. Compare data access programming between FoxPro and .NET. So that was an interesting one because I remember before moving to the US, sorry, I just checking where the camera, which one is being used. Before moving to the US, while learning FoxPro through books and online forums, I remember hearing of the Advisor was a magazine, and they have the DevCon conference every year, which was very traditional and well known in that community. And I remember just reading about it and hearing about it, from so far away, and always wanting to attend to one of those events. And it was just not something that I could afford at the time. And then the first time I got to go to that conference was to actually give talks there. Now I don't think that was 2007. I don't think that was the first time I spoke there. I think I went out there a few years prior, maybe the previous year or the year before. But I didn't blog about, I guess, because I don't remember seeing that. But then going out there, and I think the first time I went out there to give talks, I think maybe I gave 1 or 2 talks, and then I was invited back and gave 4 talks, which, for me, it was great. It was around the time when I was writing a lot of articles on FoxPro.net, helping folks from FoxPro learn about .NET and soothing that transition, because I know it was a hard one, going through that myself those years. So I'm very fond of being able to go out there and give talks to that conference. Now that's a long one. What's that? How to keep up with what's going on, part 1. No idea what that was. Yeah, constantly changing job, technologies that keep changing. 2007, right? Like, technology is moving fast. It's not any different now. If anything, it's moving even faster. So how to keep up? Okay, so that's how I was keeping up with technology at the time. Podcasts, which seems like the last few years podcasts have really taken off. But around that time, that's what I was using. .NET Rocks and Hansel Minutes were my favorite ones at the time. There were some webcasts. Yeah, that was another way. Blogs. Those are some of the ones that I followed at the time. Yeah. Ooh. At the time, I had a Pocket PC. Some of you may not remember Pocket PCs, right? Handheld device, precursor to like smartphones, if you will. Yeah, I would load some of those blog posts on my Pocket PC that I could carry with me around and read when I was doing anything else. So I still do a lot of that, like loading things on my iPhone, on my smartphone. Blogs I don't read or don't follow as many anymore. But newsletters, I do follow some newsletters. Nothing related to, or I'm sorry, let me put that back. Only a few related to technology. Most are not related to technology at all, but I do have 2 that I follow. related to AI that I essentially skim over it to just see if there's anything there that applies to something that I need in the moment, that can solve problems that I have in the moment, or that I can see me using it, soon. Otherwise, I don't try to keep up with all of it. It's just way too much, and a lot of it flies over my head, and I don't care much about it. Webcasts, I guess they've been replaced with YouTube videos and some other offerings, like through Improving, we have Coursera, so I take courses there. Podcasts, I don't follow any like constantly, like I don't subscribe to podcasts. As I say that out loud, I don't subscribe it like on Spotify or any of these streaming services, but I do have some subscriptions on YouTube podcasts, um, and none of them are really technical. Most of them have nothing to do necessarily with technical, like deep things, but yeah, still do some of that. Presentation from the Dallas Code Camp. Yeah, just came back from DevCon at that time. Yeah, those files, I don't think they're even live anymore. Let's try it. Nope. I don't remember specifically what I spoke about in Dallas Code Camp, but I would, as I mentioned before, gladly take the 4-hour drive to Dallas to give some talks there. Presentation on productivity at the Houston.NET user group, the HDNUG. Yeah. I don't remember if there was any talk that I mentioned here on productivity before that, but talks on productivity, I know I was giving around that time, and I still give many of them. My interpretation of productivity has shifted over time. Where I put my attention on as far as productivity has shifted, and it keeps changing and evolving. And I've been posting about that recently, and I know that I have a whole lot more content that I'm planning to publish about, because some of them, like earlier this year, I gave a 4-part series, 1-hour talk at Improving on productivity at various levels. So I am looking forward to revisiting that. Yep, DevTeach. I mentioned that it used to be one of my favorite conferences to speak. It was great. The organization, the environment, the community out there was always great. So that year I was speaking on the new features in C# 3, tips and tricks to boost up productivity, and an intro to Microsoft Build. That was a time when I used to do like what's now known as DevOps. I don't remember it being called DevOps as we know today back then, but I remember learning MSBuild, which was at the time a good technology to do that, and I was invested into that, automating builds, large builds, and large projects, the builds of large projects. Very nice. How to keep up with what's going on, part 2. FxCop. I mentioned about this tool a few videos ago. It was a static analysis tool for .NET, and I remember using that as a way to keep up with some of the things in the .NET space, right? As I said, it take forever to read the documentation at MSDN on different topics, so I would just write my code, make it build, make sure that it worked for whatever I was trying to achieve, and then using FxCop, leveraging the static analysis tool to tell me, since it knew or it was coded based on the documentation for .NET, it would tell me, hey, this code here, it compiles, it seems to be working for you, but look out for the following things. You may want to change it to this or use this way or whatever the case might be. It was a way to keep up. Brown bag meetings. So yeah, that's interesting. I still didn't have the virtual brown bag there. So brown bag meetings was getting together with coworkers once a week, getting into the conference room while we're eating our lunch. We would share different things. I would share whatever I was learning. My coworkers would share whatever they were learning, and giving quick demos of things that we've learned, and that was a way to keep up with some of the things that were happening. Nowadays, I know that we have many like lunch and learns type of things, where lunch and learns tend to be like a full presentation or maybe some lightning talks, like longer lightning talks. Brown bag meetings were like, hey, check this out. Like 3 minutes just showing a shortcut or a website that we found or a blog post with some interesting idea or a new feature of whatever tool we were using. So that was another way to keep up with what was going on. And then certification study group. I mentioned before that I didn't really get into those study groups to get the certification. I got into it to learn about my coworkers and also, learn some of the things in the .NET space that I was not aware of. So I'd participate in those study groups just to be aware of those things, not to like learn in depth those topics, but just to be aware that they were there. And when I needed, I knew where to go, dig more into it. And at some point, I would learn more about something that I was interested in at the time because it was solving a real problem. So that was made 2007, June 2007. Okay, so 2007 was a very active one. Let's see, what is that? Know your shortcuts. Yep. At the time I was in Windows, it was prior to me moving to Mac computers. But the thing still stands with me. Whether you're on Windows, on Mac, know shortcuts to your operating system. As long as you're using your computer, your device, you're using that operating system, get to know it well. I remember back in the days of Windows, like seeing people reaching for the mouse to open Windows Explorer, going to the start menu, and then, looking for Windows Explorer, clicking on it. It's like, guys, it's just Windows key E. And people who had been using Windows for a long time didn't know that, which, surprised me. Whatever IDE you're using, take some time to learn the shortcuts for the main actions that you take in that IDE. Look up all of these IDEs, all of these tools. They have some sort of like keyboard shortcut, like a reference poster, a PDF or something. I still recommend, people just print those out, have somewhere handy, learn one shortcut a day, cross off the shortcut you learned that day, do that over a month, and you're gonna be way better off you were prior to that. Cross-application shortcuts, I think that was the point, like anything that works on all the applications, like Control-C, Control-V should be universal. So learning that is a good thing, like commenting code in and out and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember finding out in Visual Studio at some point when the commenting in and out was under the edit/advanced menu. Apparently, commenting code in and out was an advanced feature. I haven't used Visual Studio in a long time. I don't know if that's still where the thing lives, but yeah, that was funny. Okay, looks like a lot of images are missing here. Let's see what that blog post was about. C#, VB, IL, and FxCop. I remember learning to write custom rules for FxCop, and then learning that, yeah, if the rules are applied to both C# or VB.NET code, it's really not evaluating the native language C# or VB. It's actually evaluating the IL, intermediate language, that gets compiled, before it gets turned into what the .NET runtime will be running. Yeah, that was me experimenting with learning those things. And it's too bad that I missed all those screenshots. But that was me learning how to do that at the time. Cool. What was after that? Compiling static analysis rules targeting both FxCop and Visual Studio. Oh, because there was that thing, you could run FxCop standalone, or when Visual Studio Team System came out, it supported code analysis, like built-in. So I guess learning how to do that as well. Looking at MSBuild and all that. Yeah, importing the rules, so they was executed within Visual Studio as well, as opposed to just a separate tool. Forgot about that. Zine is the bomb for digital content. So that was an offering from Code Magazine that hosted not only Code Magazine, but it could host other content, blog posts, other magazines. It was a better rendering than PDF. It was a WPF application, and it was really slick. It was really cool at the time, that software. Yeah, but I have no idea. That probably no longer exists. Let me move. See, sane.com. Does that still come up anywhere? Yeah, it goes to the Code Magazine website, but yep, it's not a thing anymore. But it was cool. It was the bomb at that time. Okay, June 2007. Let's see, July 2007. I'll try keeping this to like 30 minutes. Let's go all the way down. Houston TechFest. It's been 2 weeks. It's going to happen. I'm going to bring 3 sessions. Object-oriented programming in .NET, design patterns in .NET, tips and tricks to improve productivity. The reason why I'm smiling, I was just reviewing a talk I gave internally at Improving last year. And the one point that I was reviewing, somebody mentioned the importance of giving talks and creating content on fundamental aspects of technology, patterns and things like that, and just how important it is. And you'll be like an enjoyed presenter if you're giving talks in those like topics that, well, everybody should know that already, right? But no, like those 2 talks, object-oriented programming in .NET and design patterns in .NET, they were at the time some of my most popular talks. And even to this day, I haven't given that talk often over the last, say, 5 years or so. But when I do give those talks, they're well attended and people really appreciate that. And a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I specifically gave some training, like a 2-day training, if I remember correctly, precisely on those topics, because people really needed that. Yeah, and productivity. Yes, webcast for the VB user group at the time. I was talking about C# 3 features, giving a talk to the Visual Basic group. They asked, I gave the talk. Because really it was based on object initializers, anonymous types, type inference, that all I was explaining through C# because that's what I was doing mostly at the time. I was not doing, when Link came around, by that time I was not doing much with VB.NET, but still those concepts applied. So I gave the talk and then I offered the content. What's that? Code snippets, CodeRush, ReSharper. So yeah, Visual Studio 2005. I remember the code snippets feature when it started coming out, but at the time I was already using DevExpress's CodeRush add-on to Visual Studio, which gave a lot of that stuff and way more. So for people like me at the time using those tools, either CodeRush or ReSharper, when those features started coming up in Visual Studio, we were like, it's like, okay, now it is there as a built-in out-of-the-box feature, but it was not nearly as good as what was offered by these other, paid plugins for Visual Studio. So I didn't really get into it much. But I looked into it because people would ask me, and if they didn't want to get the paid tools, or maybe they couldn't, company policy or something like that, at least I would learn a little bit about the native options in Visual Studio. ReSharper, yeah, here you go. I mentioned that I had heard at that time people using both CodeRush and ReSharper, and around that time I was not doing that yet. 1 or 2 years later, I was doing precisely that. I was using both tools because while they had a lot of overlap, when I learned to use the things that one had that the other one didn't, I really found them very useful. So I spent the time to figure out the parts, the overlapping parts, so pick and choose, like, okay, I want this one from CodeRush, this one from ReSharper. Once I got that dialed in, I really enjoyed it. So I was using both of them. And the other thing was that I remember at the time, CodeRush, whenever there was a new version of Visual Studio, CodeRush was faster at offering support for the new features coming in the .NET framework and C#. For saying, okay, trying to keep the sanity. Just in case you don't know, I keep another blog. I just posted something related to my band. Yeah, it's when I used to keep separate blogs for those things. Not anymore. That separate blog does not exist anymore. CodeRush features that I've been spoiled by: string format and introduce local. It's too bad that we lost those images, but it's me talking about some CodeRush specific features, which most of them now, like, it's table stakes on all these IDEs, but it was the bomb at the time. July, so let's see, August 2007. What we got? Visual Studio and the messages that irritates the living heck out of me. Okay, oh man, it's too bad. I don't know what those are. What document? What assembly? Give me something. But this one is priceless. This one I know exactly. Oh man, really? If I click there, we don't get anything. Oh, yeah. And at the time, I didn't have these things stored locally. What a shame. That one I remember specifically. Yeah. Visual Studio is busy. That would drive me nuts. I'm working there in Visual Studio, editing some source code, right? Text files. And then eventually it would freeze. And then it would show like a bubble, which it's become known as what? A toast message coming from the bottom saying, Microsoft Visual Studio is busy. Yeah, so am I. Giddy up. Yeah, that irritated me profoundly. Fun with extension methods and enums. Yep, so Buddy Tim had posted some things about extension methods, and around that same time, is that still up? Let's see. No, boohoo. But yeah, when I learned that I could use extension methods on enums, it was an interesting revelation because around the time I was working on something where this was really useful, right? Where I wanted to be able to use an enum for comparison operators like equals, not equals, that would get turned into string because someplace else I was building, crafting, SQL statements, SQL statements, and that came in handy for whatever I was doing there at the time. Believe me, it made sense. That was like really useful to have at that time. Okay, that was a short month. August 27, September. See if we can make some more progress here. Smell Sharp, the tool to detect code smells. Also missing, I do have those images someplace else, but I was playing with the idea. There is a talk I gave to the Houston.NET user group on refactoring code, and I mentioned this idea of creating a tool called Smell Sharp that whenever you open some code file, there comes this fragrance or some sort of smell from the last person who touched that code or the person who the code most resembles. Because like visually, depending on the situation, visually when you open some source code, you can tell, oh, that looks like Joe, that looks like Mary, like Joe's code, Mary's code. And then I thought, for people who like write smelly code, yeah, have something that you open the source code and you go like, ooh, that's that's unpleasant. It was just because at the time I was using, so DevExpress had a tool under Refactor Pro. Refactor Pro is the name of the tool that showed cyclomatic complexity, and I used to keep that on the side so that as I open source files, I would see and quickly, like immediately see what the tool said as far as like how complex that piece of code was. So it would prepare my frame of mind to like take my time, take a deep breath, and dive into it. And that's where I was exploring those ideas, like a 3D experience. If anybody ever builds that, now it's gonna be like, oh, this was created by this AI model, or this was created by that AI model. All right, I digress. Windows Developer Power Tools. No idea what that is. Huh? Windows Developer Power Tools. Okay, so it was a book. I don't even remember going through it. Okay, it's a big book. Okay. I recommend any developer should look into this book. Okay, so I guess I did flick through the book to find things that applied to me. All right, and here are some of the tools listed in the book that I already use. I have like the static. Oh, Jim Holmes. Yeah, that book's not there anymore. Yep, I know Jim from conferences. We spoke at the same conference, both. Yep, Jim Avery and Jim Holmes. Yeah. TestDriven.net, I mentioned a few videos ago. NUnit, GoStock, CR metrics, CodeRush metrics, yeah. Independ, .NET Reflector, which was something we used to reverse engineer .NET DLLs. SlickRun, I mentioned that before. Sysinternals, yep, and MSBuild community tasks. Interesting. Yep, I do. Now I remember going through that book. Dealing with the boredom of traveling. So at the time I was traveling a lot. Conferences, user groups, clients. Like at the time I used to go quite frequently to Eugene, Oregon. And I enjoyed the work that I was doing, but like the traveling time and, later at night in the hotel, because I would usually be out there for like a whole week. So what did I used to do? Listening to podcasts, still listening to podcasts. Oh, it was like storytelling. I'm saying exactly what I was doing. Uh, Practicing some things on my computer. Eventually, my laptop's battery would die, so then I would switch over to my Pocket PC and maybe start watching a movie. At the time, we would have to shut off the electronic devices, right? The laptop computers. Yeah, there was a photo here of like a traveler guitar, which I still have back here, which was one that, an electric guitar that was airplane friendly, if you will. I could carry with me as a carry-on, and also a device to record and practice um, things that I was playing on the guitar. So that was nice because I got to work a little bit and practice while I was on the road. Yeah, still have both things. I don't use those things much anymore, but they're still around. Okay, had a minor glitch here with the losing power momentarily. Let's see now, October. Okay, it looks like those are pretty long, so I'm gonna save that to the next video. Bye for now.